Welcome to The Jewish Lens, a podcast to discuss anything and everything from a Jewish perspective. Now, please help me welcome the man who controls the media, your host, Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen, and today I'm thrilled to welcome someone who's been on the news a bit recently, which we'll talk about. She's the author of several books, including Afterbirth and Human Blues. Her work has been featured in such places as Time, Tablet, and NPR. Please help me welcome Elisa Albert. Elisa, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Well, we have a lot to cover, and there goes my screen. Hold on. We have a lot to cover. Let's start with you and a little bit about your journey. You grew up in LA, and you were from an observant family?
Yeah.
Like how much you guys do all the traditional things and everything?
Like day school, kosher,
Really,
Shabbat, you know.
We had similar backgrounds then with that. Did all that the same thing. Went to yeshiva as well when I was younger. So when did you first start showing an interest in writing?
About 14, 15, adolescence was pretty brutal and books were like my way through and writing kind of grew organically out of that.
You want to keep a journal or things like that?
Yeah, totally.
So where did you, wait, again, it's not on my screen. Sorry about this. So do you remember what the first thing you wrote was?
I wrote on a lot of journals. I wrote like stuff for school. I worked for the school paper. Like I kind of came into my own, I think, actually, like calling out bullshit was kind of my thing, like that's just like what got my, juices flowing was like when something wasn't right. And I felt like there was like an unjust or, kind of shitty situation that like I had the power to call out in writing. Like writing had this words have power,
You submitted anywhere, like schools or anything like that at that time?
Yeah, I think the first thing that ever like caused a stir that I wrote was a letter to the editor of the high school newspaper because I took issue with the drama teacher's casting methodologies. I felt like it was unfair. So I felt the need to call that out. It was really important to me at the time.
Oh, very cool. I have to hear what they did afterwards, actually. So I have to ask. I saw that when you were in school, you wrote a column called Fat Albert with, of course, the PH spelling in fat. So what was that column about and why was it called that? I just, that one just struck me.
Well, it was the 90s, so PHAT was like
But
slang for cool. I don't know the etymology of that, but it was like a funny thing. And like Fat Albert was that cartoon, I
right.
guess, which I was born a little bit too late for, but it was still like a thing. And my last name is Albert because my grandfather, of course, Americanized it because he didn't want to seem too Jewish. But so, as an awkward teenage girl with the last name Albert, I sometimes got some ribbing. So I decided to claim it, and like repurpose it and like make fun of it. And so that seemed, again, I guess writing is a way of like sort of turning the tables, you can't make fun of me for being a fat person named Albert. Like I'm gonna make fun of myself and beat you to it.
We also were Americanized. I was Rosenzweig at back in the generations ago. So your first book was a collection of stories called "How This Night Is Different," and I love that title. And review after review I read calls you witty, funny, which is all the stuff that I love. So I want to hear about that book and how did that come about?
That book grew out of my MFA thesis in grad school. I was really cutting my teeth on short stories and they were my first love. It's hard to make a leap into a novel. A novel's so huge that it can be impossible to imagine, writing all the way through to one. But coming of age as a writer, short stories are like super manageable and a way to kind of cut your teeth. And I was working on those stories all in grad school, a couple of them even in college. And that book
This
all,
went back. This one really went back when you were
yeah,
working on those stories for years.
yeah. There are a couple of stories in that book that were in slightly different form, like part of my college thesis. I was really committed to writing, like it was all I ever wanted to do or cared about, or books, reading, writing. But that book is all those stories are about like coming of age as a Jewish person.
Mhm.
And some glory and some gore, some things that were really, it's 20 years ago now. I was in my 20s when that book came out, and like it's funny to look back at it because I was really trying to bust out of like the insular Jewish community I came
Hmm.
from. I was kind of like, let me out of here. Like, I want to see the big wide world. I want to just be like a person. And what's funny is when that book came out and I was touted as a Jewish writer. I was like annoyed all the time. I was like, am I a good writer or not? Like, can I just be a writer and like, PS, I'm a Jew, or do I have to always be a Jewish writer? It's funny now to look back at that because
Well,
what a
just
waste.
curious for something that you just said that you this insular Jewish world. So did you grow up? It was like all predominantly Jewish around your neighborhood and your circle of friends and everything.
A lot,
Hmm.
camp, synagogue, my parents' circles, around our table. I was in an awesome performing arts troupe in middle school called Yad B'Yad, which was like a huge deal to me and a lot. My high school wasn't Jewish, but most of my friends were sort of, incidentally Jewish, and it was really just it was the water I swam in. It was,
And it's tough to go see from that and then to experience like the outside world after that. And
yeah, it was exciting. Like and then I went to Brandeis. So
yes,
Um, but I had this choice to make after Brandeis. I was either gonna go move to New York and get an entry-level job in publishing and like live my dream, or I was gonna go do this like 2-year work service program in Israel and like farm. And I was agonizing, and it's like this kind of sliding doors because those lives would
no.
have been so different. And I chose the entry-level job in publishing and kind of went off to colonize Brooklyn at the turn of the 21st century. And like it was fun. It was fun. No regrets, but
Where you lived in Brooklyn? Where in Brooklyn did you live?
South Brooklyn, in Boerum Hill and Cobble Hill, and then downtown Brooklyn, and then got out like around 2008, 9, and came upstate New York.
I know you can't tell from the accent, but I'm from Brooklyn originally.
Oh, I can tell.
Yes, I'm Sheepshead Bay around that area. But
You're real. You're real Brooklyn.
oh, right, right, exactly.
I'm like 2005 Brooklyn.
Well, so I saw that you were compared to Philip Roth. Not bad. Was he a big influence of yours?
Huge, huge. I mean, his work opened up a lot for me in terms of understanding what was possible with anger, with humor,
Hmm.
with like subverting your own biography, with taking things from your life and like putting them in totally different contexts and sort of messing with reality instead of discarding it.
Well, I saw so many things really cool that stuck out when I was reading about you. So you won an award from Moment Magazine for emerging writer. So tell me about that award. How did it come about? That's a Jewish themed one.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember. Moment is a really great magazine that's been around forever. Well, not forever, but you know what I mean. I don't remember how that came about. It was like a nice surprise, I think. I still have the frame certificate upstairs, I think.
What was it like for you at the time just to be recognized like that for your work?
Huge, huge. I mean, it was, I barely made it out of adolescence, like a lot of us. And so to sort of find a place in the world where like I had skills that were valued and I was recognized, for doing that work, it was so, so,
Some
so good.
validation.
Yeah, I just felt like, okay, like I deserve to be in the world. Like I didn't know what my place was. I always felt like an outsider. And then, it's like I can do this work and I have value. It's cool.
You mentioned thinking about like Israel before too. So you were actually in Israel. You were in Israel on October 7th. So what were you doing there? And had you been there before?
Yeah, I lived there in 1986 for a spell with my mom when I was 8.
Mhm.
Um, it was the greatest time. I like at 8 years old with no awareness of politics or history or war or conflict. I was just like, this is my place. Like done. Like we're staying. But we didn't stay, unfortunately. And I was back at like 16 with Ramah, and that was epic and beautiful. And eye-opening and mind expanding and soul expanding. And then I was back in my 20s for a minute. And then I kind of closed the door a little bit. And I hadn't been to Israel in 20 years when I went in October, which is weird. And it was like we landed in Tel Aviv October 1st, and I had that experience that you hear people talk about all the time, which is like I stepped off the plane and I was like, my shoulders went down, this like unidentified ache in my chest went away, and I was like, oh, I forgot, like after all these years.
Really?
And I've been living in upstate New York for 15 years and raising a family here and making a community here, which has been really challenging but great. But like hitting my head up kind of against the limits of what I can invent, and it's been over many years that I've really just craved like synagogue community, Jewish community, and recognize that there are kind of limits to how much you can kind of invent community and solidarity with people who are not your family, and like I think I had to kind of go really far away from that in order to come back around. Like, I've been in the yoga community, I've been in the literary community, I've like tried really hard to make a home in lots of places, and it's
Mhm.
nice to be fluent in like all these different languages and cultures, so to speak, but like to kind of maybe it's just a midlife thing, maybe it's just like perimenopausal cliche, but it's like I want to go home, like I've
Yeah.
been around, I've seen the shit. There's some good, there's some bad, there's some ugly. Like I'll take my own shit back.
I lived in Israel in the 80s as well for a couple of years, and I didn't get to go back until 5 years ago. I had not been back since then, and I felt exactly the same way as soon as I got off. Like saying, like, wow, this is my people. This is, I feel like I belong here.
Yeah.
So what was that like? So how did you find out about what had happened that day on October 7th? What was your initial reaction and you're living there? What was the reaction of the people around you as well?
I was in a hotel in Tel Aviv and I had a little balcony overlooking the Tayelet, and there was rocket fire. It must have been 7 in the morning. I don't know. I was like, I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't understand the magnitude at all. There was rocket fire in the sky. There was, um, and to tell you the truth, I like put a pillow over my head and went back to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
um, which speaks probably more to just my laziness and stupidity than anything else. But I was like, I don't know what the fuck is happening, but it's 7 a.m. on a Saturday. So I had a really, really fucked up dream for like 45 minutes, like really fucked up dream. And then woke up to the ringing phone, went downstairs, like everybody's, it took a long time, or it took hours and hours, days for the scope of what had happened to
Oh,
become clear. So there were rumors, and it was clear that it was like bad, 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 bad. And then there was kind of another sirens started to go off around, it must have been 9-ish. And then it was like into the shelter in the hotel, like the basement concrete bunker of the hotel. And
mm,
that's when I wasn't really scared. I was confused and I was kind of like shocked. And my mom kind of looked at me and she said, "Are you scared?" And I was like, "No." I wasn't scared, but then I just burst into tears and I was like hysterically sobbing. And I was just like, who can live like this? Like, how is this possible? How is this real? Like what world are we in? And like why? I don't know. I just was like, so then it was just a tangle of all kinds of crazy emotions, thoughts, and experiences for the next few days. And yeah.
yeah, no, I think that's the experience for a lot of people. I mean, I broke into tears that day. It's
Yeah.
gut punch that you don't recover from. It's just, I said,
Yeah.
I feel like I'll never be the same. I'd say that it's not
Yeah.
no hyperbole there. So, I've talked about this before. Almost immediately after it happened, the pro-Hamas anti-Semitic rallies started popping up all over streets at schools, and you used to teach at Columbia. So, first of all, what did you teach there? First of all, or when you teach there?
Creative writing. I teach there on and off. I'm like an adjunct. I come and go. I'm supposed to be there in the spring. We'll see. But it was shocking, surprising, horrifying, but also like it seemed like deja vu. Like there was
Yeah.
part of me that was not surprised at all. And I was like,
So I was going to ask,
here it is. Here it is. Like let's fucking get it out in the open. Before the sunset on the 7th, I was looking at my Instagram and seeing unbelievable bullshit. Before the fucking sunset,
right.
it was like, oh, like people were revealing themselves in ways that
Oh
like
yeah,
I like it's like it was Orwellian. I mean, people kind of, that's a cliche to say something's Orwellian, but it was Orwellian.
you see people that you know for years, and like, oh, this is what you think. Right.
Wow. I even had a conversation with one woman, a friend of 20 years, truly, from a completely different background, culture, religion, heritage, ethnicity. Beautiful friend. My dog really wants to get in on this conversation. Um, And I even had a conversation, because in the beginning, I was like, oh, hi, so and so. I like, you're my friend. I love you. Like, this is wrong. Like, I'm in Tel Aviv right now. Like, let me explain to you what's going on. Like, I'm
Mhm.
here. I'm
Right.
of this, you know, and it probably took less than a month and before I started to realize that was futile.
Right.
And that's when I started to get like angry. That's when I was like, this shit is not salvageable. We're gonna have to burn it to the fucking ground and start again. And like, I was like with a machete walking through the forest, like, just bye-bye, get the fuck out of my life. Get like, no, no,
Oh, I
no.
agree.
There's
I
no
agree.
talking. There's no talking to certain people, you know?
Well, it's not just that. How do you continue being friends with someone saying you don't care about my people? How do you go on like that? There's no salvaging that relationship.
Somebody who's so ignorant and so careless and so bigoted and feels entitled to all of it, from some of far-flung perch with no skin in the game, whatever, all these cliches. We've all been through this shit this year. But here's the question now, like, okay, it's almost the anniversary.
Right.
There's no end in sight. We don't know how bad things are going to have to get. We're all still so deep in hell. And like, this shit that happened to me this week.
We're gonna talk
Uh,
about, yeah.
can I say shit? Am I cursing too much?
No, you're fine.
Uh, um, it's kind of like it was jarring. I mean, it was not unexpected and it was not out of nowhere, but it's jarring. And like the question now is like, what do we do? Like, how are we gonna do anything positive? Because that's what we do. We alchemize. We take shit and we spin it into gold. Like we have to find a way through this. I don't know what it is, but the rage, the grief, the anger, the injustice, we can't continue this way forever. We have to find some other method or,
Well, let's
collective. I don't
I want
know.
to talk about that. I'm just curious, but going back to the Columbia thing, like you were working there. So what did you think though
Oh yeah.
when you saw the congressional hearings with President Shafiq, like just dismissing
Well,
everything?
yeah, first of all, I'm an adjunct, so like I come and go. Like
Okay.
I breeze in, I breeze out, I get a paycheck. I'm not on the faculty, I'm not tenured, I don't have health insurance,
Hmm.
I teach my class, I leave.
Right.
Which is awesome and suits me fine. But so in terms of, and I'm married to a guy who is an academic and a tenured professor and very much like in the university like departmental academic life. Like
Right.
he has to deal with a lot more institutional shit than I do. God love him
He's at
forever.
Columbia?
No, he's up here at SUNY Albany,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
which is the parent institution of the New York State Writers Institute.
Well, so
Awkward.
let's discuss. So I've had on other authors, and we've talked about all the stuff that's going on about where Jews fit into publishing and the literary world today. I think just about every single one has felt the same way, that ostracized to an extent, placed on lists. I don't think any of them have had the overt anti-Semitism that face. So you were supposed to be part of this, the Albany Book Festival, which is run by New York State Writers Institute. How do you become involved? Let's start with that. How do you become involved, and you kind of walk us through what happens?
I do stuff with them all the time, and mostly it's like on a volunteer basis, and we're friendly, and it's not a huge literary community in upstate New York, so it's a great place. It was founded by William Kennedy with some of his MacArthur money in the 80s, and he's this incredible. He's still around in his 90s doing incredible work, and deep fondness and respect and admiration for him. And, it's been a great relationship for many years. But this was a brick wall, it kind of, everything came screeching to a halt. And I think they were maybe hoping that because of our like friendship and whatever, like I would kind of go quietly and like let this situation kind of like.
Yeah, but let's cover. So what happened? So you're on this. You're supposed to moderate. You were moderating the panel, right?
Yeah, monitoring a panel. They have a book festival every year. It's a sweet day long thing. And I was moderating this panel. They asked me months ago. The panel theme was girls coming of age, which is kind of funny now. And because I think we're all coming of age.
Hmm.
And it's with three writers. I didn't know them. I didn't know their work. But I'm game. I do this kind of thing like pretty frequently. It's kind of old hat. It's fun. It's like a way to be in a conversation with people, meet people. It's like kind of a collegial, gracious thing to do to be like part of a community of writers. And, so I tend to, whenever I can do this kind of thing, I do it. Um, and 2 days before the festival, I got an email saying that these two writers did not want to appear on a panel with me because I'm a Zionist, and they were uncomfortable with being sharing space with me. The third panelist apparently was called and said like, this is all like a little yucky. I don't want to be anywhere near any of this, so just count me out. Like, no thanks. Just get me away from this shit. Which must be nice. And
Sure.
the administrators they were I think they just didn't know what to do. And I was like, guys, like here's what you got to do. And I just like it's really simple. You have to like call this out and say, no, this is
Right.
counter to our mission, and we are going to proceed. And if our friend here, the Zionist, is sitting on a panel with three empty chairs, we're still gonna have a great time. And like we're not gonna let this
Exactly.
shit derail our moment at this book festival. They didn't want to do that. I think they were hoping it would go away. They were like, we're just going to cancel this panel. And I was like, mm-mm. I was like, no, I want to show up, and they were
Right.
like, no, don't. And I was like, I don't think that's going to look good, you guys. Like, and I went to the press.
Did you go to the where the event was supposed to be that day or no?
No, no, I'm not a masochist, but
Right.
I mean, I was willing to, is the point.
Right.
Let me do it. Let me just do like, this is the only authentic, honest, decent way forward. Like, you guys say, we don't tolerate bigotry, discrimination. Like, we're
Oh,
very sorry this happened, but please welcome our friend, the Zionist. Um, and they just didn't want to do that. It was just mishandled. I feel for them. I imagine them right now sort of scrambling around to like a Marx Brothers sort of tune, trying to find some way not to have to just be accountable for this. It's really simple. I think at this point they have to kind of say like, we're really sorry we fucked this up. We're gonna learn
yeah.
and move
Because
on.
I mean, look, you have more of a relationship with them, but it just seemed so cowardly to say unforeseen circumstances instead of saying this is what happened.
It's right. And like, let's learn from this is kind of the net. Like, we can't go back. We can't undo this. Sometimes it takes like an unfortunate situation to learn. And like, let's use this as that opportunity and let's learn and grow and face it. Like avoiding shit makes
You know,
shit infinitely worse. Don't do that.
I mean, good for you for not backing down, for real. That's the main thing. And so, I read even that the Greenwich Academy backed one of their authors who pulled out, which is shameful to me as well. So I've written on social media about how it's okay for the anti-Semites to stop using the word Zionist and just use Jew because we know what you mean anyway. And so I always put down it's less for you to write, so it would be considerate for there too. So you had a
Three
quote of
letters.
that,
Three
right?
letters.
You had a quote about that too. So, what do you feel about when they use the word Zionists?
I just think they're ignorant. I just think I think yes, like it actually does mean Jew, but they like people are like, no, it doesn't. Like people are just confused. I mean, I mean, at some point, evil and ignorance have a very intimate relationship. And so, that's why it's important to talk about this shit and face it. But people are ignorant. They don't know what Zionism means. They don't understand what Israel is. They don't understand like what lived communal Judaism is about. They might have some token Jew they know who has no fucking clue either, and they're
Right.
like, "Me?" you know. And it's like there's no way around the fact that we are going to have to talk to each other more, not less.
Well, at some point, it does when you're it slips. The Jew slips out, and at that point, you would think that the ones just protesting Zionism would say, "Hey, this is what they really mean."
Yeah,
At
well,
some
and
extent,
then you have this dynamic where it's like there's like the good Jews
right? Of
versus the
course.
bad Jews. Like it's just garbage.
Yeah, so a lot of this stems from the piece you wrote for Tablet, which you addressed the terror apologists, and that was the problem when the terror apologists don't like to be referred to as the terror apologists.
No, and you know what else is fascists do not have a good sense of humor.
Yeah, I see that exactly.
They don't resonate with the funnies. Fascists don't like the funnies. And that piece was tongue in cheek. I mean, it was deadly serious, but it was
It was a
also
great
like,
piece. Yeah,
thank you. But no, comedy, humor, not for autocrats.
I do love the you see on Twitter all the time about the people that the Jewish people going around and interviewing the people at the rallies and just making fun without them realizing that they're being made fun of. But
I
yes,
love it. That's good stuff.
but one of the things I've discussed here is as much as October 7th has left a wound that will stay with me forever. It's also had the effect of that. In my opinion, I've always been very Jewish minded, but after October 7th, I've never felt more of wanting to embrace the Jewish community and wanting to be immersed in it. So one of the silver linings I thought for you was, at least from what I see, is that the Jewish community has really rallied around you. I mean, did you have many people reaching out to you after this to offer support?
Thousands, like just incredible. I posted something on Facebook, which is crazy enough.
Yeah,
And I said, wow, like I actually understand what it means now when people say that love is bigger than hate.
yeah.
Like I feel that. And it's still tempting, like sometimes maybe when it gets to be a little bit too late at night and it's time for schluff, but like it's still tempting sometimes to focus on the ones who haven't reached out and who still haven't reached out, but like Yamach Shemo, let's focus on the overwhelming number of people who are like, I'm here for you. What do you need? We're all together in this. Like, this is us. Like, we're gonna get through this.
Yeah, I'm always impressed by that as well. The ones who reach out, and I also pay very special heed to the ones that haven't as well. Did a lot of non-Jews reach out also, or no?
Really, really special ones. And it's I found this after the seventh too. It was unpredictable. It's not who I would have thought. You know what
Right.
I mean? And it's not necessarily the ones with the fanciest job titles or the highest education. You know, it's like there's decent people everywhere. There's courageous people everywhere. Sometimes it's not who you expect. And sometimes the ones you think are going to be so sophisticated and so up to the challenge are just like, what? You know?
Yeah. Let's get back to the original thing. I've spoken to a lot of authors since I've been doing this, and one of the questions I normally ask is, where do you feel is the state of Jews in publishing right now?
I don't know. I think it's going to take a long time to shake out. Publishing is pretty slow by its nature, although I guess the internet has changed that a little bit.
Mhm.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I think there are a lot of us. I think there are a lot of us. Uh, us not even meaning Jews, us like people who understand what the fuck is going on. I have to hope there are enough of us, people who have open minds, who are holding space for complexity, who have the capacity to hold space for
Right.
complexity. who are not sort of simpleton, reactionary, herd mentality, binary, sort of intellectually and emotionally incapable. I have to believe there are more of us than of them.
A lot of people fearful also to speak out.
Fearful,
Yeah,
right. So the more of us who do
right.
speak out, the
Agree.
more we can push it for and just bring it out. It's like an infected wound. It's not gonna heal until we get it some sunlight and air and disinfectant.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I keep saying, and I post it on social media a lot. If you're not speaking out now, what are we waiting for? So that's one thing, right? It's scary, I understand, but
It
this
is.
is
But hey, you know what? Like just every it's you don't necessarily have to go all the way. Like there might be some small act
middle
of bravery
ground.
you can do. There might be some, everything is not for everybody. And I do also firmly believe that we all have different work to do and like different arenas in which we can maneuver and operate. Although that starts to sound like, Zionist cabal shit. Um, but like everybody has a part to play, and I do believe that the more we can sort of inspire each other to do our own part. I don't have to do your part, you don't have to do my part, but like we're all doing the best we can.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned earlier, just like, and I see this, you're a self-described progressive, and that aspect in publishing is one of the most infuriating to me. That feeling of we want to be inclusive of everyone, but just not you guys. So, so has that been eye-opening to you since October 7th, or did you already see that beforehand?
I think I saw it
Yeah.
beforehand. I definitely saw it beforehand. There's an essay in my new book of a collection of essays that was published in 2017 in Lilith magazine
Um,
about it's called Five Recent Encounters, and this was 2017, and that piece is just a little series of vignettes, numbered vignettes, and it's like a few different encounters I had over probably a 6 month period in like 2017 that like opened my eyes. It shocked me. It was like just this like weird repetitive different contexts, different people, these weird expressions of ignorance or sort of suspicion or just weird ideas or feelings about Jews, and all expressed like innocently, And as these experiences were sort of racking up during that time, I was like, what? So I just wrote that piece as just an account. Like there's no commentary. It's just like, here's a scene, here's a scene, here's a
judge for
scene.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that for years now. The same type thing. It's like, all these we want diversity, but no, not you. But
You've seen the book Jews Don't Count, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And the People Love Dead Jews is a masterpiece.
yeah. Also, so I want to talk about your book, The Snarling Girl. So after this all happened, you were talking about that a little. Can you tell me a little about that?
Yeah, it's a collection of essays published over the past 10 years, different magazines. And it's kind of like a greatest hits of like the last 10 years of essays. Oh, there's the dog. The dog approves.
So, well, what are you working on next?
I've been working on a novel about the war, actually. I started it on October 8th. I
Really?
had a book in the works. I had a novel in the works that I was happy with, and on October 6th, on October 6th, I was happy with it. October 7th, it was like, this is irrelevant. I'll go back to it. Like it's cute, but it's just what I was like, I can't care about this anymore. So I immediately started writing like feverishly about what I was seeing and hearing around the war and
Mhm.
shaping that into a novel.
Are you going back to Israel at all in the near future?
I hope so. I hope so. I was just there in July. ASAP, really.
I don't say. So, how can people follow you on social media?
Instagram only. I mean, Facebook, I exist, but I don't live. Instagram, I'm probably too much. Um,
What's
but
your handle there? So, for the audio person.
oh, it's let me see, what's my handle? Elisa Tamar. Elisa Tamar, which Tamar is my middle name. It's Hebrew for date palm.
Right. Well, Elise, I want to thank you again so much for taking the time to speak. And again, I'm truly sorry what happened to you, but I think that's been a huge silver lining as well for just
Oh, Totally. Let's use it. Let's
Yeah.
make something good out of it, and let's move forward and like leave some shit in the past and have a Shana Tova and
Yes, this
everything good.
absolutely agree. Well, again, this has been The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen. Again, a very special thanks to Elisa Albert, and please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to The Jewish Lens, where all items used was strictly kosher.